Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good
It's a
afternoon.
great privilege for me to communicate with you on Ukraine, and not only on Ukraine. We very appreciate your activity in promoting Ukraine in the European Union. On the 27th of April, European Union and Ukraine will hold bilateral summit in Kiev. So may I ask you my first question, what are your expectations concerning this high-level meeting on its results, achievements, political messages?
As you know, the relationships between EU and Ukraine, this is an ongoing process, and I hope also the never-ending story. It means that we have to take decision every day if it's necessary, and but this summit is this is something very special. You are absolutely right, because it's the first summit after this historical event. I mean the Maidan revolution, and it's really important for Ukraine and for Europe, for both of us. Of course, the decision-making process in Europe is really complex, as you know, and in fact, the decision maker in Europe are 28 member states, and this is why I think that we can't expect too much from this very summit when it comes to decisions, because for example, when we are talking about visa-free regime, one of the greatest expectation today in Ukraine, as I know well, for sure we will be discuss what Ukraine should to do, and what we can to do to help Ukraine to achieve this level we need. But we can't expect any final decisions during this summit. And for me, the summit is something like element of process, and but it's also so important because in May, as you know, we have also Riga summit, and for sure this Riga summit will be also the place we can expect some significant decisions.
May I follow concerning visa-free regime? So, in fact, yes, we understand, we realize that this Monday there will no such a decision. But what are your assessment? I know on the 13th of May, European Commission will provide his report about assessment of second stage visa liberalization action plan implementation of Ukrainian side. Maybe when do you see such possibility? And one more issue: do crises in Mediterranean and Russia's aggression and situation in Donbass could be the many very important obstacles in this way?
Let me be clear, but I have no doubts that the goodwill of 28 member states and the whole EU, this is the fact. I mean, the goodwill when it comes to visa-free regime. But this is not only about politics, and it's not only about intentions, as you know. It's also about standards and procedures, and this is why we have to wait for this precise and in some elements very technical assessment of from the Commission, and this is why I am not here to speculate any dates, but I can assure you that and all Ukrainians that I am absolutely aware how important this issue is also for ordinary people, not only for administration and for politicians. For sure, today I can say that the first step are quite efficient. I mean, this Ukraine starts with issuing this biometric passports. What was maybe the most challenging and the most difficult technical element. But as I know well, we need more progress when it comes to reforms in concerns to prosecutors, judiciary, and also when it comes to police. And I think that on Monday we'll discuss about what we need. In Riga summit, I will do, and this is my intention, I will to confirm that this is our common intention to have this visa-free regime as soon as possible. But in the end of the day, your homework is the most important thing, as you know.
Continuing about reforms that you mentioned, these reforms and another, how do you assess this Ukrainian government reform process progress? I'm sure you will discuss this issue with Ukrainian authorities on summit.
Yes, as you can imagine, I am in permanent contact with Ukrainian authority also when it comes to this really important problem, I mean reforms. And the progress is visible, and I have no doubts that your government and your administration presents a huge determination. But of course, this is also never-ending process. You know, for me, it's also my personal experience in my previous role as Polish Prime Minister, but also when I was, young revolutionary. I mean, the time of the first solidarity movement in Poland. In the beginning, revolution like Solidarity or Maidan, this is not the grand finale. This is not the end of the process. This is just the beginning of much more complex process than revolution as such in itself. And this is why this is my appeal. This is my and also very tough declaration that there's the most important thing today for Ukraine is the consistency and determination and courage to continue reforms. I know how difficult it is, and but in fact you have no choice, because what is maybe the most important reflection today, and this is also because of my experiences. From time to time, people think that they do this demanding, challenging reforms for Europe or for politicians. This is not true. Reforms. This is you have to do reforms in your own interest, and I know how. How difficult the Ukrainian situation is because of the war and the conflict in Donbass. And I can understand why Ukrainians, authorities and people are so focused on this issue. It's no doubt this is the most important thing today for Ukraine. But believe me, you have to fight on two fronts, in fact. One is in Donbass, I mean the front versus separatists with Russian support. But the second is inside your borders. The inside enemy maybe is more difficult. It's more snaky and smart, because this is lack of courage. This is disappointment. lack of faith. Maybe this is the most important challenge today for Ukraine, to be consistent and determined to continue this really difficult process. And what you did until now, it's really promising, but of course it's not enough. And the last remark. You have to believe that the reforms, this is something like, cleaning your house. It's not that you can do it once and for all. It's also ongoing process, and this is why this is so important. That I can understand that you are, from time to time, you are disappointed. I mean, people. But believe me, it's your efforts and your sacrifice. This is the only way you have, and I beg you, don't give up. It's very important.
Mr. President, the EU member states were very swift in arranging special European Council meeting on the Mediterranean crisis, and the concrete decisions on irregular migration prevention have been taken. Would it be fair to consider that Ukraine does not see such swiftness from the EU in dealing with Russia's military aggression? And can the Mediterranean crisis grab attention and funds of the EU from Ukraine, from Donbas region crisis and war?
Yeah, you asked me also in this context. I mean, the Mediterranean crisis, when it comes also to the visa-free regime, it's of course the situation in Donbas. This is obvious and clear difficulties, and I have no doubts. But in fact, you have some examples. For example, Moldova. Moldova has today the visa-free regime, but they have also this internal problem inside their borders, conflict, and a problem with Transnistria. It means that, of course, the aggression and conflict in Donbas, this is something very difficult when it comes to this process about visa-free regime, but it's possible to achieve despite this problem. And I called this latest extraordinary European Council not because the Mediterranean crisis is more important than Ukraine, but because of this huge tragedy. I mean, the death of more than 800 people, and of course Europe had to react immediately. But as you know, Ukraine, in fact, is one of the main topic of every European Council. And I am the personal guarantee that Ukraine will be the priority for Europe, of course, as other critical situation, because unfortunately we live in pretty difficult times. I mean, we have to cope as the EU, as the institutions, with the Greek crisis, with the illegal, really huge illegal migration inflow. We have problem with the new wave and very threatened new wave of terrorism. This is also, we have to cope with the results of the financial crisis in the whole Europe, and of course Ukraine. And please believe me, this is for sure for Malta or for Italy. The priority is the situation in the Mediterranean, and I can understand them. But this is my duty and my responsibility to have a good balance between the different challenges. And as I mentioned, you can be sure that I will I will be like the guardian of your interests.
And continue, maybe on conclusions. According to President of Ukraine Poroshenko initiative, Ukrainian applied to the United Nations and to the EU a request to deploy in eastern regions of country peacekeeping mission, or maybe mission or security mission, in order to monitor, to control the implementation of Minsk agreement. How do you see, how do you foresee, how do you assess this initiative and its possibility, in particular, maybe possibility to deploy maybe virtual EU mission on the common security and defense policy? It's a very sensitive question, I know.
Of course, we have to discuss also on Monday during our summit with President Poroshenko and Prime Minister Yatsenyuk this issue. Today, frankly speaking, I don't see an enthusiasm in Europe when it comes to special peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. But of course, the mood can change. But for us, because implementation of Minsk agreement is a political priority for Europe, because I think that, as you know, for Europe, the peace in this region is the most important task, and this is why we invest so many energy and diplomatic efforts to achieve this Minsk agreement. I know that it's far from satisfaction, and this is not maybe the best solution for Ukraine, but for sure, what is the most important goal for us? This is the real chance to have a peace or truce, and I fully understand why efficient and effective monitoring is so important, not only for Ukraine, also for us. But today, Europe is ready to strengthen this mission of OSCE, to make this mission more effective than until now. And when it comes to special peacekeeping forces or groups from Europe today, I think today it's not possible to have a decision on Monday or in next days. But of course, this is also one of the topics of our summit.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are very appreciate that you have find your time in very, very busy agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.